Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com and yarncraftsandcoffee.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a wreath base to cover a 12-inch styrofoam wreath, and we're going to work the cover in half double crochet stitches. This is part of my Haylee series, and the Haylee series on my blogs features simple half double crochet stitches. I'll pop the links to some other patterns from this series in the description box below. You're also going to find the link to the written pattern there and the link to all of the supplies that I'm using here in my video. You can view the written pattern for free, and if you are a Creation Crochet, I Love Knots, Yarn Crafts and Coffee, or On Rockwood Lane blog subscriber, or you subscribe to any blog that uses Grow for locked content, you can unlock the PDF for free right in the PDF section of my blog post. Another great thing I love about Grow is that if you love this pattern and you want to save it, you just go to the bottom right corner where there's a little heart and you click on it, and it will save it to your Grow account. That way when you go to your dashboard, all of your saved posts will be in one place, no matter which blog it came from. So we're going to be using worsted weight yarn. That's a number 4 weight yarn. I've used Lion Brand Pound of Love in the color Oxford Gray for both my hanger and the wreath base. I do normally choose a different color for the hanger, but in this case I wanted it to blend in. Together with this worsted weight yarn, I'm going to be using an H8 5mm crochet hook. This is a super cute little hook that I got from Bronze Shepherd Studio on Etsy. And being that my yarn shop is in Florida, I thought flamingos were really great. So I actually have these in my yarn store, which is located in America's Antique Mall in Melbourne, Florida. You can get matching stitch markers with a little flamingo on it or the same sky blue or sand color in my shop as well. I'll go ahead and link her Etsy shop in the description box as well if you like to shop on Etsy. She has so many other really fun options. You can also find the Lion Brand yarn in my shop online as well as at America's Antique Mall. I do suggest having some stitch markers on hand. You could use either these plastic ones like I show in the tutorial, or some that are connected to the lever back finding, or some earrings if you have the same kind of finding on them. Paper clips, safety pins, scrap yarn also works, but it's super helpful when it comes to assembling the wreath form cover since you want to match up your rows as you sew along. Gauge is not terribly essential for this project. It does need to fit the width of your styrofoam wreath base. In the end, you're going to want your panel to be about 6 inches smaller than the circumference of your wreath base. So if you switch up your yarn, then you're just going to want to keep that in mind. The wreath hanger is optional. I like to use these wreath hangers. I like to use it over the seam where I join the two sides. And then I place this buttonhole onto a nail that's on my door. You could also place it onto a hook from like a command hook or from a door wreath hanger. Or you could leave this off and just place your wreath right onto a door hanger. Now I'm creating just the half double crochet cover that is going to go over the styrofoam wreath base. It looks the same on both sides. The seam is going to be whip stitched. You're not even going to see it. And you can embellish it any way that you would like. I've done some where I hung some signs in the center. I have some where I have glued on flowers to the sides. I've done some where I sat a stuffed animal in the center and then glued it in place. There are a lot of fun options for making your own wreaths. You're going to want to stay tuned to see what I turned this one into. I'm going to be using it to decorate for the summer. So if you have any ideas as to what kind of wreath I'm going to be making, pop it down into the description box below. Once I get it all complete, I will post a separate tutorial for it and link it down in the description box. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the slip knot. So I have the yarn here over my fingers. Wrap it around my index finger 2 times. Hold tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Pull the loop on the left up over the other one but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the one on the left now up over the other one and off my finger. Insert my crochet hook into the loop on my finger and pull it off. Hold the working yarn in my right hand, short tail in my left. I'm going to pull that so this knot will go to normal tension. We're going to start with a chain 23. To chain, we yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Each one of these gives us one of these V shapes that you see. We don't count the loop on our hook, so we have 1, 2, 3 chains currently. Go ahead and continue working so you have all your chains done. Now that we have all our chains done, I just did a chain of 13. Since I already finished my project, I'm just doing a small sample here. We're going to start by half double crocheting into the 3rd chain from the hook. So we don't count the loop that's on our hook. We skip 1, 2 chains, and in that next chain, the 3rd chain, we're going to work our first half double crochet in there. And these 2 chains that we're skipping are going to count as our first official half double crochet of the row. So once we work the half double crochet in this 3rd chain, we'll actually have 2 stitches for this row. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the chain, yarn over and pull through. There are 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And now we've just completed our first half double crochet, and then we have those skipped chains that are equal in height. We're going to continue half double crocheting into each chain all the way across. Let's work a couple more together. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. If you look to the top of these stitches, each one of these produces a V shape at the top as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, and the skip chains on the end make 4 stitches. 3 half double crochets plus the skip chains. Sometimes the skip chains are hard to count or to see, so I try to keep count as I'm going along. But at the end of this row, you're going to have just 1 stitch less than the total number of chains that you started with, counting these skip chains as a half double crochet. So in my example, I chained 13. At the end, I'm going to have 12 half double crochets. Go ahead and continue working all the way till the end. There are all my half double crochets all the way across row 1. For row 2, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. The chain does not count as a stitch. We're going to half double crochet into the first stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, picking up both loops of that V shape at the top, and complete your half double crochet. And then half double crochet into each stitch all the way across there. You're going to first want to make sure that you keep track of all the half double crochets that you're working into, because once you get to the end where those skip chains are, it can be hard to remember that you need to work into them sometimes because they don't stick out as well as these V shapes from the half double crochets. So I'll work just a couple more stitches here. Alright, in my sample I told you I have 12 stitches, so right now I have 11 stitches worked, and I need to work into the skip chains. But you see how it looks like it's almost at the end already? So if I counted, I would have 11 half double crochets. I know I need 12, so I know I need to still work into the skip chains. Yarn over, insert your hook into the top chain there, which is the next stitch that is most natural to work into, right into the center of that chain. Right now you're looking at the back of the chain, so you have the back bump there, and then one of the legs of the V shape there, right into the center of that chain, and then complete your half double crochet. And now our row is complete. Right now it's taking a sideways shape here, but after we continue working a couple more rows, it's going to straighten out. The only time you're going to have to work into the chain is going to be in row 2 because we're working into the skip chains. From here on out, you're going to be working into a half double crochet for all the remaining rows. So row 3, you're going to chain 1 and turn, half double crochet into the first stitch, and then half double crochet into each stitch all the way across there. Continue working to the end. Here at the end of row 3, you can see that the shaping is already starting to straighten out on the end. And I want to touch base really quick on what is the wrong side and what is the right side so that you can count your rows as you go. If you don't want to count your rows, you do not have to. You can use a soft tape measure and measure as you go so that you can stop when you get close to the size that you're looking for. But if you wanted to count your rows, we have 3 rows here. The first one we started into the chain, then the second one that we worked into the chain at the end, and then the third one. If you look at the one in the middle, it looks different than the one on the bottom and the one on the top. The one in the middle, row 2, right now we're looking at the back side of it, or the wrong side. The stitches look less defined. They look raised up. They're not quite as pretty as the other ones. That's how we know we're looking at the back of it. Looking at row 1 and row 3, the stitches look prettier. They look more defined. They're not raised up. This is the front side, or the right side of the fabric. This is going to help you when you're counting, because you'll know that when you see the right side, that's 1 row. The wrong side makes 2 rows. The next one makes 3 rows. And actually what I do is I look to the raised row, which is going to be the wrong side, and I count by 2s. The raised ones are easier for my eye to catch, so I'll go 2, 4, 6, counting by the wrong side. Now if you don't want to count your rows, you're going to use your soft tape measure and you're going to measure from the bottom edge all the way up to the top. Before I jump into that, I suggest you work 1 to 3 more rows. So you'll have 4 to 6 rows, and then measure your work from the edge of the left side all the way across to the edge of the right side. You're going to want this to measure between 5.5 inches and 5 3/4 inches. If it is currently measuring larger or smaller, it is not going to fit your wreath correctly. I think it could stand to maybe be a little bit more narrow than this, but if it's too much shorter or if it's wider than this, it is not going to fit your wreath form correctly. So if you're spot on, you're good to continue, but if you are not and you need to take this apart, you're going to want to use your soft tape measure to see how many stitches you need to take out or how many you need to add. Then you'll pull this loop out here until you get back to the chains, and you'll either add or subtract chains to the bottom and then continue in pattern. Once your width is the correct size, you're going to want to work a total of 90 rows or 30 7/8 inches. It is going to stretch to fit, so if it's a little bit longer or a little bit shorter than that, it's fine. It's still going to stretch to fit, but if it is quite a bit shorter, you're going to want to add more rows, and if it is quite a bit longer, you're going to want to take some rows out. The measurement around the wreath is about 37.5 inches, so this is about 6.5 inches smaller. Once you have all your rows complete, I'll be back with you so that we can weave in our initial tail end and assemble. I've got 90 rows done. From the beginning to the last row that I worked, it's measuring 30 7/8 inches long. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off here with a long tail that I'm going to use for sewing. And if you run out of yarn and you need to add some more later, you can always do that. So you don't have to worry about getting the exact amount. I just pulled a long tail to work with. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to this loop from the last stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it out until the tail end comes out and breaks the stitch. And then I'm going to thread this into my tapestry needle and use this to sew it closed. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and weave in my initial tail end. Here in the beginning, what I'm looking at right now is the right side of it, or the pretty side. It's more defined. So the tail end is over here on the left side right now. You can see that row 1 is the pretty side and row 2 is the back side. It's a little bit raised up and less defined. I'm going to weave my ends in on the back side of this. So I'm going to flip it over so the tail end is on the right side now. And when I weave this in, it's going to show on the back side or the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this into my tapestry needle. And to get the shaping correct here, I'm going to work on the side a little bit before I start weaving. So I'm going to follow this last stitch that you see here on the side where it looks like a V shape. I'm going to work from the back side, inserting my needle into the middle of the stitch there along the side and inserting all the way through. And then I'll pull it, and I want to pull it enough to get my tail end through, but not enough to distort this, because if you pull too much, this bottom end will come up into that stitch. So I'm going to hold on to the fabric here in between my fingers, give that strand a tug, and then I'm going to come now from the back side into that very last stitch where the slip stitch is. From the back to the front, and the front being the side that I'm looking at. Pull it through. This brings it now to the wrong side, and I'm in a good position to go ahead and weave in the end. If I would not have done this step here, then it would have distorted the shaping here on the side, and I don't like that. So I do this little step, and then it gets me into the perfect position here and doesn't mess up the shaping. So now I'm going to go ahead and weave in as close to the side edge as possible here, just to hide my tail end a little bit better. And as I work, when I enter and exit, I'm not going to pick the entire stitch up on my needle. Instead, I'm going to insert my needle into the center of it to break it in half, and that's going to help capture my yarn better. So I'm going to break this stitch in half, run my needle under several stitches here, and break the last stitch in half when I exit. Hold onto the fabric in between my fingers and then pull it through. Give it a tug. Use my fingers to manipulate the fabric if I need to so it's not bunched up. I want it to lay naturally. And then I can rotate this. I like to do 3 passes. If you feel comfortable after 2, you can stop. If you feel like you need to work another one, it's whatever you need to do to feel the most secure with your end. So here I'm going to work into a nearby stitch, breaking it in half, and run back through several of those same stitches I just finished, breaking my last stitch in half as I exit. Hold onto the fabric in between my fingers and then pull the needle through, give it a tug, and then come back and manipulate the fabric if I need to, if it has bunched up. I'm feeling pretty secure now with just 2 passes, so I'm going to go ahead and fasten off. And now I'm ready to get this onto my styrofoam base. I'm going to have the wrong side facing up. That's the side I just finished weaving into. I'm going to start on the other end though, where I pulled that long tail from, and I'm going to thread that end into my tapestry needle. I'm going to put my styrofoam wreath right in the center and fold those 2 panels inward so that they meet in the middle. I'm going to flip this around really quick because I actually want to work from the other direction. I can lay the wreath form down. And as you work, you're just going to hold these 2 panels together so you can whip stitch through both of the layers. So right now my tail end is coming from the bottom. I'm going to bring my needle up from the top into the same stitch that is equal, so the corresponding stitch on the other side from that same row, from the top down through both loops of that last stitch, and then insert back into the same stitch as the last one where the tail end is coming out of, and pull through. Now we're going to continue whip stitching all the way to the end in a very similar manner to how we just worked this stitch. As you work, you're going to want to make sure your rows line up. So if you lay this flat, you can see the right side here, and then next to that the raised up wrong side. And next to that, the pretty right side. Next to that, the raised up wrong side. So your rows are going to look exactly the same. You're just going to want to make sure that they line up as you're working your stitches. Otherwise, the panel is going to be crooked. To help you out, you may want to use some stitch markers to mark your place. I like to do it every couple inches or so. This way it counts as a checkpoint without going too far. So I'll do this all the way down or halfway until I run out of stitch markers or so, and then once I start working I'll add those to the end. We're going to come back here to where we worked this first stitch. I always like to do 2 passes into each stitch. So if you feel comfortable with just one, you can work 1 pass. But I personally like the coverage and security that I get with 2 passes. So here I'm going to insert my needle diagonally up to the right into the next row, always working on the side edge of the stitch, and then into the corresponding stitch from the bottom layer. This is going to bring my tail end here diagonally up to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it through. I'm going to pull so that it's flush, but I'm not going to pull too tight so that it bunches up the fabric. You just want it to lay naturally but be secure. So that's my first stitch, diagonal. Now I'm going to move my tail end out of the way, and I'm going to work a stitch that is vertical from where I inserted before directly down into the same stitch that my tail is currently coming out of. So right into the side edge of that stitch from the top panel, through both layers there, and then down into the second panel, through both layers of that last stitch right there, inserting that needle into the same stitch the tail end is currently coming out of. Then I'll pull it through. Again, pull it so that it's flush and secure but doesn't bunch up your fabric. If it does bunch up your fabric, just lightly stretch the panels and it will loosen up your stitches there. So I go diagonally over and then vertical. From here I'm going to go diagonally over to the right into the next row and match that stitch directly down to the corresponding stitch in the same row but just below it in that bottom panel. And give it a tug. And then the second part of that, I'm going to go into that same stitch on the top, vertically down into the same stitch on the bottom. And you want to work as close to the side edge as possible so that it doesn't make any holes or create any lacy patterns between the 2 layers on that last part there. And now I'm just going to continue working in this manner all the way down. As I get to my stitch markers, I'll pull them off, but they're going to be there to help guide me along the way. Once you get to the end, it's going to look like you don't have enough fabric to put the 2 sides together. You are going to have enough. It's going to stretch to fit, and that's what we want. So once I get to the end, I'll come back with you and I'll show you how we're going to get those together and secure that final join. I have a couple more stitches here to finish this off. And as you can see, here I've reached the end and there is a gap here between where we started and where we finished. You're going to simply pull these two together, just scrunch them together, and if you need more fabric to work with, you can go to the opposite side and scrunch the fabric out. Just slightly stretch it outward all the way until you get back to where the two panels meet, and you'll see that you have extra fabric to work with there. And you'll just butt them right up against each other. You're going to want to make sure that the seam where you've whip stitched lines up so that you know that the fabric is going to be nice and even. And then you're just going to whip stitch those two panels together, working around here until you're back to the beginning. And I'm going to do it in a similar manner. So I'm going to bring my needle into the stitch here to the right. That is the most natural to just go into. And then back into the same stitch that my tail end is currently coming out of. Then I'll come diagonally up to the right into the next stitch, and then come up into the panel to the left, matching the stitches there. That's my diagonal stitch. I'm going to work mine that comes across here, so back into the same stitch on the right and into the same stitch on the left. Again, you don't have to work 2 stitches into each stitch, that's just my preferred method. And then I'll come over here and work diagonally to the right and then into the corresponding stitch. And I'm going to continue working all the way around until I'm back to the beginning. Here I've reached the beginning. I have just one more stitch here left, so I'm going to go ahead and work that, bringing my needle up through the center where I whip stitched. And now my two sides are connected. I'm going to go ahead and weave my ends into that whip stitch. That's where it's going to hide that the best. And I didn't break the first stitch, but I am going to break this last stitch in half, and that's just going to help to capture my yarn better. I'm going to hold on to this with my finger as I give it a final tug, and then use my fingers to just lightly stretch the fabric if I need to manipulate it so that it lays naturally. Then I'll break this stitch here as I enter, and run back through several of those same stitches I just worked in that whip stitch, breaking that last stitch in half as I exit. I'm holding on to that section right there with my finger and then pulling the yarn through, and that's going to help prevent the bunching before it even happens, so that when you give your final tug you don't have to work as hard. And that's 2 passes. I'm going to work one more here, although I think 2 is fine. And now I'm going to fasten off. And now my wreath base is ready for whatever I want to add onto it. There are so many fun options. I am going to show you how to work a hanger that you can use to cover up the seam. If you don't want to use the crocheted hanger, you can put the door hanger over top of this. You can cover this with ribbon and a bow. You can do your other embellishments on this side. And then after I show you how to do this hanger, this will officially be complete and ready to hang on your door. You'll want to stay tuned because I am going to be turning this into a 4th of July wreath, so I will have that ready to share really soon. This is an optional addition to your wreath. You could just put your wreath up onto a wreath hanger that you might have hanging on your door already. But I like to hang mine from a nail, so I create these wreath hangers with this buttonhole. I put my wreath in the center and then I just place this over onto the nail and it holds my wreaths up. It's also a great way to hide the seam from where I joined the 2 sides on my crocheted wreath bases. I'm going to start with a slip knot, so I've pulled the yarn over my hand here, wrap it around my index finger 2 times and hold tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Pull the loop on the left up over the other one but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the one on the left up over the other one and off my finger. Insert my hook here into the loop on my finger and pull it off, and then I'll hold the working yarn in my right hand, short tail end in my left. I'm going to pull that so this will go to normal tension. We're going to start with a chain 43. Alright, now I have 43 of these V-shapes, 43 chains. We're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So we don't count the loop that's on our hook, skipping that first chain and into that second chain. We're going to insert our hook right into the center of it, yarn over and pull through. This gives us 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through both loops to complete a single crochet. Insert your hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert your hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. You can see that each one of these also produced a V shape here along the top. 1, 2, 3 single crochets. We're going to continue single crocheting into each chain all the way until we get to the end, and you'll have 42 single crochets when you finish. I've completed my first row here with 42 single crochets all the way across. Row 2 is going to be where we start introducing the chains for the buttonholes that the wreath hanger or nail or whatever you're going to hang it from is going to insert into. We're going to start with a chain 1 and turn, and then we're going to single crochet into this very first stitch here, inserting into the stitch, picking up both loops of the V shape, and single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Then we'll chain 4 and skip each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Single crochet into the next stitch. So that's one of our buttonholes for the hook to go into, and we'll make a matching one on the other side. Continue single crocheting here into the center. We have one that we just finished. You're going to have 26 in total. Now we've come to the last 8 stitches. We're going to chain 4, skip each of the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and single crochet into each of the last 4 stitches. And that will complete our second buttonhole. So now we have matching ones on both sides, so our wreath can go in the center and we can fold it over. For row 3, chain 1 and turn, single crochet into each of the first 4 stitches. Then we're going to work 4 single crochets into this chain space. Insert your hook right into the center of the chain space. You have the chains on top of your hook, and then complete a single crochet. Insert right into the center of the chain space. You have the chains on the top of your hook, and complete a single crochet. So that's 2, 3, and 4. Then continue working a single crochet into each of those 26 stitches along the center. Work 4 single crochets into that last chain space, and then single crochet into each of those last 4 single crochets. Here I've completed row 3, and we just single crocheted into each stitch all the way across, including 4 stitches into the chain space. For row 4, we're going to start with a chain 1 and turn, single crochet into the first stitch, and then single crochet into each stitch all the way across to the end. And here where you've worked your stitches over the chain space, you're just going to work one single crochet into each of those stitches, just the same way as you'll do in the middle and on the ends. At the end of row 4, I'm going to work this very last stitch here. That will complete all the stitches across the top there. I'm going to begin working down the side, and then I'll come around for the bottom here. So we're going to chain 1, but we're not going to turn. We're going to work one more stitch into this very last stitch that we just finished working into. And then we're going to work one single crochet into the side edge of row 2, which is this next stitch right here. You're going to insert your hook right into the center of it, breaking it in half so that you can pick up the V shape there along the side, and then complete your single crochet. You don't want to insert your hook into the space in between those two stitches because it will pull this and then it'll look like there's a hole in there. So that's why we broke that stitch in half. We're going to work another single crochet into the very next stitch connected to row 1. You'll insert your hook right into that hole. There are still 2 loops there on the side. They're a little bit tighter so it's harder to see. Complete that single crochet. And then we're going to insert a hook into the chain next to it and work 3 single crochets into the same exact stitch. So there's the first one, and then into the same exact stitch, single crochet number 2, and into the same exact stitch, single crochet number 3. That's going to be our corner stitch, and we increase in there or work multiple stitches so that it will lay flat. Now we're going to continue working on the opposite side of the foundation chain. So we're just going to work one single crochet into each stitch that you see there. It's going to be very similar to when you worked row 1 into the chain itself, right into the center, and complete a single crochet. Right into the center there and complete a single crochet. And just continue working one single crochet into each chain all the way across to the end. Here at the end, I'm going to complete the second to last stitch here, and then in the last stitch I'm going to work 3 single crochets to complete another increase for the corner. So right into that very last stitch, work a single crochet, and then work 2 more into that same stitch. And I'm holding the tail end to the back of the work so that this doesn't open up too much because it's not secured yet until you weave in the end. And that stitch is just going to open up. So you just grab that tail end, hold onto the fabric, and give it a tug, and it will stay nice and tight. We're going to work up the side here the same way as we just did on the other side. The stitches are going to look a little bit different though because we're looking at the back side of them now from when the rows were turned. So we'll insert our hook into this very next stitch here that is connected to row 1. Right into the center, breaking it in half, you have the back bump here. And when you push through, you'll have a V shape on your hook. Complete that single crochet. Insert your hook into the next stitch connected to row 2, which is the right side or the pretty side. Right into the side of that stitch. There are 2 loops here. It's harder to see because they're tight. Complete a single crochet, and then into the side edge of the next stitch, which is connected to row 3, right into the center of that stitch, and you have that V shape on the top. Very easy to see. Complete that single crochet. Now we've reached where we started. We're going to insert our hook into the same stitch as where we worked that first stitch and work one more single crochet. Then slip stitch join to the first stitch, so insert my hook underneath both loops of that first stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and through the loop that's on my hook. That's going to take the place of the third stitch from the corner, and now our reef hanger is complete. So I'll go ahead and grab my scissors so that I can fasten off here. Come back to where I worked this last loop, pull it out completely to break it. I like to bring it to the wrong side, insert my hook into the same stitch I just slip stitched to from the wrong side or the back side to the front. yarn over with that tail end, and then bring it to the back. And now we're ready to weave in our ends. I'm going to follow the same process as I do before, 3 passes, breaking my first stitch in half and my last one as well when I exit. The first tail end, I went ahead and weaved it in here along the top. Here I'm going to do it along the side. Now fasten off, and this is ready to go onto my wreath and then onto the door. So here is what wreaths I made. I like to use the hanger to cover up the seam where I joined the 2 sides. So I'll put the wrong side or the back side facing down along my wreath and then just fold it over. Then I'll hang it on my door. I have a nail up there from this buttonhole that I created at the top. Guys, thanks so much for watching my video. You're going to find the written pattern for this linked in the description box below, as well as some other wreath tutorials. It would help me out a bunch if you would smash that like button to let YouTube know that you enjoyed this video, and subscribe while you're there.